This
Tak,
is
I'm just gonna go
exciting.
ahead and press record because
Uh-oh, it's
you,
real now. It's real.
well, you and I get on tangents real fast, real,
That's fine. That's
real
more
fast.
work for you. You got to edit it all,
S-
but I'll try to
No,
make it.
so I thought I'm gonna go ahead and just press record immediately. Otherwise, I won't know when it begins. But let's
That's true.
begin. But
All
I'm so
right.
excited to have you. Before we
Thank you. Thank you.
begin, maybe you
Great to
want to
be here.
share for our listeners, those who are not
For an hour?
join.
Sure, for an
Yeah, I
hour.
know. For not for who are not visually looking at us, but
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by your T-shirt. It says "Failure is." Tell
Failure
me about
is
it.
good. Can you see it? It says failure is good.
Tell me
There you
about
go.
that, Tak. Let's kick off with
Yes,
that.
absolutely. So this T-shirt is our weekly uniform we wear at Thursday gatherings at Venture Café Tokyo. But the start of how everything happened was that our executive director Yasu Yamakawa has got two sayings he always says, and one is "action trumps everything," and
Mm-hmm.
the other one is "failure is good." And we wear them both. When we first started, we had our Action Trumps Everything shirt. They were in black and gray.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were going to say, hey, one color is for staff, and the other color is for audience members or participants, so they can kind of tell and tell apart which one's what. But
Mm-hmm.
then we just had this uproar, and we had all these people come by. They were like, oh my god, we're running out of shirts, what do we do? So everyone started getting all these different shirt colors, the black and grays and stuff like that. So we're like, all right, it's a communal thing, it's okay. But then once the event even got bigger, people were
Mm-hmm.
like, who's the staff, and what's this and what's that? So we
Mm-hmm.
decided to give this red color, which is our Venture Cafe red. um, Something that stands alone. It really stands out. People can like easily find people. As a staff member, we can say, hey, that's our staff members over there. And we decided to go with failure is good, because I think one is that in Japan, the concept of failure sometimes comes as a notion or thing that is negative.
Mm-hmm.
It might be tied to some concept to, let's say, maybe really, really big point would be something like a shame. It's something that is a little bit a taboo in a sense in old school Japan or old new school Japan, however way you want to think about it, how far back you want to go back onto it. But we believe that this whole concept of failure is good is also tied to action trumps everything, meaning you need to make some sort of action. You need to move in order for you to get some sort of response.
Mm-hmm.
And that action may lead to something that goes towards failure, which is
Mm-hmm.
fine. But the most important concept is that you learn from this mistake, or you learn from
Yeah.
that action that you took.
Mm-hmm.
Hence,
Mm-hmm.
if you're able to respond, learn from it, have
Mm-hmm.
an experience, we think that actually failure is good, because it brings together some sort of new action plan for you
Mm-hmm.
to iterate.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing about failure is that you just failed at that moment in time. That way, you did something, that person you talked to, that thing that you did might actually be a solution when you do it, let's say 5 years from now
Mm-hmm.
or 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't really actually fail. You you were able to put something together and then get some sort of response back.
Mm-hmm.
So I come from a background of, let's say, art,
Mm-hmm.
or um, most specifically video production, or if you're a student listening to this.
Let's do that, Tak. Before let me jump in here and
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
before we do like the Venture Cafe in Tokyo thing, which we want to jump into,
yeah.
tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got there, because actually,
To
what
Venture
might
Cafe.
yeah, so what
Okay.
people actually might not know about you is
All
that
right.
this person that you are, this community builder, that hasn't always been your path. That actually you worked in American baseball like
I did.
for like a really
You
long
know so
time.
much about me, Brittany. It's so
I know,
crazy.
so I'm such a stalker. So
um,
why don't you talk to us a little bit about maybe just to give people like a little bit of
yeah.
overview, what Tuck and I want to talk about today is we want to talk about communities. We want to talk about building community in particularly maybe like the startup lens or the innovation sense. We want to talk about communities, but we also kind of want to talk about um, what Tuck calls type C people, right? And I'm not gonna give away what type C is. Tuck can explain that, but maybe Tuck, you want to take us on a little bit of a journey to how you ended up, running one of the largest, really, if not the largest, innovation community in Japan. Tell us about it.
Absolutely. So I guess I'll bring it all the way back. Well, not all the way back to about middle school or something like that. So I was born in Japan. Then I went over to Malaysia to live for a couple of years when I was in elementary school. Then I moved over to Boston, and this is where one of my biggest parts of my life was spent. I went to middle school, high school, college, and grad school, all in Boston. Well, it's a place called Newton, another one place called Wellesley. So not really Boston right outside of it, but people know Boston better, so I'm just gonna say Boston. And then in between college and grad school, I was really, I loved sports. I still do love sports. I love media and entertainment. And I had a passion for creating things, so to be hands on. And so I was in a lot of theater, but not on the acting side, but building sets,
Mhm.
doing lights, doing design, etc., etc. And then, had a camera with me a lot of times, so making videos and stuff like that. So I was really, really fortunate right after college or during college in an internship program to be able to work in video production and marketing over at the Boston Red Sox, and fan services and stuff like that. So I was able to combine a couple of my passions together, get a job over there. And then during that time, my father passed away. When my father passed away, I was down for an inheritance of things,
Yeah.
whether that's a financial thing, whether that's a family related thing, whether that's a monetary thing, whether business thing. There's lots of different things that
Mhm.
were a part of it. But some of the biggest parts of it were a business or a businesses or were
Mhm.
businesses that kind of were attached to information or knowledge that I did not know in the previous sense. And
Mhm.
therefore, my background in um, sports, marketing, creation, video, etc., was not really uh, what's the right word? A perfect fit for my education background to be able to
Mhm.
run a business of that nature. And
Mhm.
so my two thoughts or two ways of thinking where I need to get it. One the major thought was I need to know something about business. I just need to know it. It's four generations of a family business that I have no clue what I should be talking about, what I should be doing. I can probably create a video for him, but that's about it.
What's the
So
industry?
so he was an entrepreneur too. So this
Oh
kind of
wow.
ties into later. But
Uh-huh.
he was an entrepreneur. He created bands and music and stuff like
Oh wow.
that. He worked for the 2002 World Cup. He was the first person to bring a Broadway musical to Japan.
Oh
He
whoa.
created a he created a live band studio around Shinjuku area.
Mhm.
Um, and also we had a family business that was in real estate down south,
Mhm.
closer to Kyoto and that area,
Mhm.
Shikoku area, if you
Mhm.
are familiar with that. So he did a lot of things. So that's another reason I was like, it's such a wide net that I don't even know how to control this animal.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, so we went to business school, and then I was able to, and fortunately, be able to get accepted into Babson College,
Mhm.
which is one of the number one entrepreneur schools in the U.S., hence probably
Mhm.
mostly the world as well.
Mhm.
Ranked over 20 years, both in MBA program, undergraduate program for
Mhm.
entrepreneurship. And after that, I worked for a startup, and then I was able to gain a little bit more knowledge, which is outside the books and outside school, in that. And then I came back to Japan to start running my family business, making sure
Mhm.
everything was set and clean. And then while I was thinking of, hey, maybe moving back to the States and going back to my friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Hence, and like missing my connections.
Yeah.
A connection from Babson. So my classmate from
Mm-hmm.
Babson was starting this new thing up called Venture Cafe, which is
Mm-hmm.
actually a connection to Boston because both CIC and Venture Cafe, which I'll go into later, is all about um, connecting people.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, my friend was like, "Hey, I need some help working at Venture Cafe Tokyo. I need helping build this up.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need some
Talk
help."
by
And I'm like,
help, I mean like there's nothing, and we're starting from zero, and
"There you go,
so
there you go." But I think the fun part is that it is my classmate, and then our executive director was actually a
Mhm.
teacher.
Oh wow.
So there's this whole Bob Babson connection that's happening over there, like talking about entrepreneurship and stuff like that. That came
Hmm.
over. So everything is a little bit tied from one thing to another, whether it's my father and my relationship
Mm.
there, or my classmates, or anything like that. It's really all about connections and how this, in a sense, the serendipitous route was created
Right,
for me to get to where I am. So now
right.
it's been going into year 4 at Venture Cafe Tokyo, helping build this innovation community here with
Mhm.
multiple backgrounds and stuff like that.
How was it coming back? Like, people talk about culture shock a lot, but what we don't talk a whole lot about is reverse culture shock. Like a
Mm.
culture where you're supposed to know how things are, and they look at you and they're like, "You look like us. Why are you acting like such a weirdo?" You know, like I've had that a lot. I had that like in a weird sense when I was in Germany because I people mistake me for being German, and I lived in Germany for 8 years, and people would look at me and be like, "What's going on with this girl? She
What's
doesn't
that?
know." Yeah,
What's
that's
going
weird.
on?
Um, but when you had this,
Embrace the weird. Embrace the
yeah,
weird for me.
totally embrace the
Embrace it.
weird. But when you had this, you were faced with this situation of, okay, I have essentially my entire life in Boston. Obviously,
Yes.
you have your connection to Japan, your family in Japan, but you talk as a person, your life was Boston, right? And if you think about it, you thought, okay, now let's open up a new chapter. How was that? The transition from the US back to Japan, especially considering kind of like the circumstances. There was a little bit of pressure that you were to go back and kind of like fill some pretty big shoes, right?
Absolutely. So my first, I mean, as far as fitting into culture, whether that's the food, the people, the train system, whatever that was, that stuff to me was pretty natural coming back. Just because, every summer break or winter break and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that, I would be back. I think the newest experience or experiences coming back to Japan after my MBA, which was 2017 ish.
Mm-hmm.
So the newest experiences there was the fact that I had to deal in a business environment or a more
Mm,
um, professional environment coming back.
mm,
And what I mean by that is, having to talk with lawyers or Japanese business entities or talking just different clients.
mm-hmm.
And working between my family business job and Venture Cafe and a little bit of CIC as well.
Mm-hmm.
You're meeting all sorts of different people. So I think culture shock wise, it was the business environment that was a little bit shocking for me. And that also brings a lot of personal sides, how people act within businesses,
Mm-hmm.
how businesses are run, the different business etiquettes, language like Kegel and stuff like that. So like it's tied to a lot of things. I'm just generalizing into a big
Uh-huh.
word called business environment. But those things were a little bit shocking. Not maybe shocking. Something that I've heard of. And until I really stepped foot in it, my mom always told me, "You're never gonna fit back in." She's like, you've done this. I made the decision for you way before your dad, and I made the decision for you way before. You're not
Mm,
gonna fit in when you're here.
interesting.
And I never really understood it. And I think a lot of people, not action trumps everything, but some people won't understand it until they're really part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm Japanese, I'm in Japan. What don't you get,
What's
or
the
what
big
won't I
deal?
get?
What's the
Yeah,
big
what's the
deal,
big
right?
deal?
Yeah.
Exactly. So until I was really part of it and going through it, and still going through it,
For sure.
um,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
think that's it's something that was very interesting. It's an
Mm-hmm.
interesting way of thinking. It's a valuable experience. And if people are okay with learning and getting even more of an open mind. I think trying things out, not just in Japan or the United States or anywhere really. It's great to experience these different cultures for yourself because you understand more of why people are acting a certain way or why people are doing things a certain thing. And that will help you in the end explore maybe 10, 15, or even 5 years down the road, um, explore why certain ways are the way things are,
Mm-hmm.
and that will help you kind of maneuver and also digest what's going on and
Mm-hmm.
give you more of an understanding. And that's part of innovation. That's part of entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship, even like making a difference within a bigger corporate culture, uh, from anywhere in the world. You just got you put yourself in the situation, learn about it. And again, this is not for everybody. Not everybody's gonna want to learn about something. They might like their own bubble. They don't want to burst their own bubble.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to become a little bit more global or become a global citizen or a global leader, these experiences I think are going to carry you further way down the road, in the long run. In the
Mm-hmm.
short run, it might be terrible. You might not enjoy it. You might be like, I don't fit in. I don't know how to fit in, stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. But in the long run, I think it's a very very valuable experience for you to have.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
the
think
culture
this is
shock,
yeah.
yeah, the culture shock part, I think comes from in the very beginning me not being able to understand why I wouldn't be able to fit in, or what, not that I
Mm.
wouldn't be able to fit in, what makes it hard to fit in into different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's the definition in a sense of culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
um, but I think if am able to touch upon a couple of things, I think one of the major things is just the language in itself,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the language barrier. Because in a sense, we have three different writing styles: the
Mm-hmm.
hiragana, katakana, kanji, and then we have, you know, 2 to 3 different types of speaking styles, not
At least.
dialects, but just styles and
Yeah.
styles in general. Whether it's the regular Japanese, the slang Japanese, and then also the business Japanese. And within the business Japanese, there's like 3 other different styles that are inside with the
Mm-hmm.
keigo, sonkeigo, and
That's right.
kenchogo and stuff like that. So, and these are things that even um, you learn on the go in a sense.
Absolutely.
You aren't taught
Chad,
everything.
even
Go ahead, go
what
ahead.
I've also seen is that's not even forget about even having your unique like background of like growing up abroad. Lots of like the new hires, what the Korean Japanese new shain, new shinyu shain, they often get pumped through like this 3-week intensive program of like how to properly speak to clients and stuff like that as well. So yeah, definitely you're
Absolutely.
on the back foot on that one if if you didn't have that experience or that exposure for sure.
Absolutely. And I think the great thing about being able to work through Venture Cafe in the end, because working for a purely Japanese company, which is my dad's whole family line or whatever,
Yeah.
versus a Venture Cafe, is that Venture Cafe allows me to work sort of in a foreign setting within Japan, and then act sort of like a foreigner towards Japanese people or
Mhm.
foreign entities that are working in Japan.
Mhm.
So the way you communicate, or
Mhm.
the way I communicate, between my father's company and from a venture cafe company is completely different. Not completely
Mhm.
different, just different.
Mhm.
Um, and it's again not that one way is right or
Well,
wrong.
just a different style.
It's
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a different style. And this will tie into a little bit later what I talk about, or what I've talked about, which is this type C type of thing. And it's not that one way is right or wrong. It's just that you've got to figure out what's right for that certain situation, time, place,
Mhm.
or thing or person. So I think I think it's something that it there's no one way right or wrong way to do it. It's just that you got to figure out that is what the time is for that. But again, I think you know working specifically for the Venture Cafe CIC side, I'm able to be a little bit more casual, um, and speak with, and I do have to speak with a lot of people. I just,
Mm-hmm.
that's part of my job. It's community builder. So it's talking to a lot of different people, different backgrounds, different genders, different socioeconomic backgrounds. So different, just different. Everyone's different. Everyone's unique. Um, and so, I don't have time in a sense to always be Japanese polite, using the yoroshiku onegai shimasu, using the onegai shimasu, using the shite shimashita, using the, I'm from this company and my name is X.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it just got to be a hello, checking
I'm
in. How
Tuck.
are
Let's
you?
go.
I'm Talk. Yeah, exactly. Let's go. Your session is coming up tomorrow. Your session is coming up next week. Oh, this is what we do, et cetera, et cetera. And, overall, the response hasn't been negative at all. People respond like they normally would. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny because if I'm working from a Japanese company towards a Japanese company, you know, it's very, very important to even writing an email, writing down from position who their top position person is in the email chain, and then writing your name and your company name, and then saying, "Oh, how are you?" and then writing the message, and then say, "Oh, I'd love to talk to you again. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu, kizuki, etc., etc." And then hitting that send button. Um, so it's again completely different.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that one way is right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I just gotta be adaptable to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I think that the being adaptable, and I can relate to this to in a different kind of maybe to a different extent, but certainly the whole, which of myself do I need to show up as right now for this meeting or whatever. I found that the best way to know when you're kind of like this kind of type C person, which is maybe also you can jump into a little bit more, so explain a little bit more about this type C person. But
Absolutely.
when you are this type C person, that it's actually not up to you to decide who am I in this meeting, who does this person need me to be. It's actually the reading the room, reading the person you're talking to, and then kind of adjusting to them. So it's not like you're just saying, "Oh, I'm talking, I've got my like Boston Red Sox, like hat on, and this is like how we're doing things." But it's like, would that person respond to that kind of talk, or do they need a different kind of talk altogether? So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about that type C person, and maybe your experience in that person, that type C person, in my opinion, is kind of like best defined by the community in
Mm.
which you're in. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think the great part of the community is that it's so diverse. But when you completely flip that around, diversity also brings a lot of information, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, a lot of backgrounds, et cetera, et cetera. So it can also cause a lot of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And this conflict isn't a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that we hope that everybody in the community has an open mind towards it and is accepting of things, whether right or wrong, in the
Mm-hmm.
very beginning. So, I mean, in a very simple sense, as we say, communication is always a give and take. You got to talk, but you also got to listen. And
Mm-hmm.
that's super important. That listening part is super important. You
Mm-hmm.
can't be like, oh, this person is speaking in English, so out my left ear. Oh, this person is talking about business, so out my right ear. Oh, this person is talking about the weather. I don't care. Like that. That's
Yeah.
not how conversations work.
Mm-hmm.
Conversations really about like playing catch. You throw me something, I catch it, and then I throw you back something. That's how we play communication this game. Um, so first of all, I think as a community builder, as something that we have to kind of build together,
Mm-hmm.
um, we always have to accept the fact that there's going to be someone who may not understand what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be people that completely understand what we're trying to do. And there's people that are going to be completely against what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we accept all of them.
Mm-hmm.
We don't care who you are as long as you're willing to be part of it, part of this
Mm-hmm.
movement. And we always tell people we are not a community that's being built by Venture Cafe Tokyo. Sure, we're the platform that is it's on it, but Brittany, you're part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm part of it. These
The
people
people.
outside are
Yeah.
all part of it. They all have a say. You have a say. You got to speak up, obviously, to have a say. You got to speak up when you're able to speak up. We're here to listen to you. And so we always say this is our community, not ours in Venture Cafes, but literally ours, all of ours. We pride ourselves in that we are one of the biggest or the best open, inclusive, and flat cultures or groups that they are. We don't care if you're a high school student. We don't care if you are a retiree. We don't care if you work for a big corporation. We don't care if you're from Brazil. You want to be part of us, you're part of us. You just got to play your part.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, again, things like conflicts could happen. But then if you're willing to listen, those are easily fixed. And so the whole concept of how, or what we say when we talk about this type C, is that, let's take, for example, Japan and the United States, or any sort of Western culture. I shouldn't say any because that's a lie. Japan and Germany are pretty similar. So let's, for the most part, let's talk about, let's say, Japanese startups or American startups. Again, this is generalization. This is not everybody. But when those two cultures or people tend to clash, a lot of it is my way, the highway. So from a business standpoint, we've got Japanese people saying, for foreigners, it's hard to open bank accounts or need a hanko to do X, Y, and Z. And, from the foreign side, startups come to Japan for about 2-3 weeks, and they're like, I'm going to smash a deal in Japan really quickly, make all this money, and, and expand to Japan, to both sides have great intentions, but both sides are thinking my way or the highway a lot of times.
Right.
And I've seen way too many people or companies both go home crying, not really crying, but just in a sense crying.
Sometimes crying, Tuck. Sometimes
crying, yes. Because that 3-week period that they thought they were going to get a deal, and sometimes it's like 3 months, they're here for a decent amount of time, and it doesn't work. And that's because Japanese cultures sometimes have a system where just things take long. But that, on an entrepreneurial side, was that you just weren't able to process or do enough research to understand that part. It takes time in Japan to do things, not everything, but some things, a lot of things. And then from a foreign standpoint, if you don't do your research, if, again, you're not listening, you're not gaining that information, you don't understand that that's the point. You don't understand that, not all of Japan is English centric or English speaking or English. They're trying to help. They'll definitely try to help you. They'll go out of their way to help you, but it just might not be in their grasp. So that's why, let's say, for a foreign business, having like a country manager, a Japanese speaking country manager, will go a long way, just because they're able to help you even more. They're able to, grasp what's going on and grasp what's happening in the world. Even better, someone who has experience on both sides, because then they'll be able to be the translator, not just by word, but for culture, to help you all out. So again, bringing it back, it's not that the American way of doing things is right. It's not that the Japanese way of doing things is correct. You've got to figure out this middle ground. So it's not A or B. This middle ground becomes C. And, our program director, Ryusuke, says it. Our executive director, Yasu, says it. It's this type C, or this completely different avenue that works for you or your partners or whoever else is involved, that gets you to the next step, is that new type C. That's not A, B, it's C. And trying to figure that out is one of the more important things, not just between Japan and the States, or it's anywhere in this type of let's say innovation, C equals innovation. This type of innovation can happen anywhere and should happen everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people have got to be able to risk things or give a little bit of leniency to what they're doing in order to
Mm-hmm.
make things work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that, in a sense, that in a sense is taking action. That in a sense is getting that feedback. That in a sense is moving the needle forward or backwards to go
Mm-hmm.
forwards.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't know if
I
that
think, yeah,
explanation or
no,
that example
absolutely.
made
No,
sense,
that's no, that no,
but that's
that's
kind of it.
perfect. I think for the business karaoke people, obviously we have a connection between Japan and another country. Like that's kind of like the business karaoke person is that we're connected with Japan and just somewhere else. So I think
Absolutely.
that's really relevant. But I also think, we've also seen that, in different what play out in our lives, that you've gone from baseball to like community building, or someone might have been previously a lawyer and they're now transitioning maybe into like online content. Like it could be like something different. So I think this type C person is not only, this Japan, like, East West, I think it's also within yourself as well. And if we
Mm,
think about like this type C person, talk to me a
yeah.
little bit about the kind of like when, because you building the community for Venture Cafe Tokyo and CIC. Talk to me a little bit about what do you need? Like you mentioned two things. One is failure is good, and the other one is action trumps everything. But what are some other things that maybe contribute to this kind of culture that you encourage, people to come and be this kind, to be who they are? What are some of those things? One thing that pops out to me, having a little bit more context to, for example, Venture Cafe and CIC, is like consistency. It's every Thursday. You guys are there
Mm.
every Thursday. So for me, consistency is a big thing. But talk to me a little bit about some other things, like as you've been building this community, what would you say some of the key cornerstones of building this community for like Type C people?
All right, absolutely. So this might again be a little bit of a longer answer, but
Oh, we're all about
building
tangents on the Business Karaoke podcast. Go ahead.
perfect, perfect. So as far as building community goes, our key ingredients or our key factors are, one is the fact that we're just a nonprofit organization.
Hmm.
CIC is our sister organization for profit. Venture Cafe side, we're nonprofit. And so what that means is that we are very, very mission driven. We're
Hmm.
tied, everything ties back to our mission, which is to connect innovators to make things happen. Very broad, very, very, what are you talking about? Understand that in the very beginning. But once you really dig deep into it, it really makes sense. We're for everyone, which is from a business structure standpoint, not targeted, which is terrible.
Hmm.
But from a community building standpoint, when we are consider, or at least we consider everyone to be an innovator, connecting innovators means we're trying to connect everyone that's out there possible, as long as he's trying to make some sort of positive impact or change the world or change yourself even. So we need to be a home for everybody that's trying to create change. And so that's number one. We have a mission that is very broad, and we need to make that work. So that's number one. And how that ties into everything is the fact that when we say we opened up and we want to have the most open, inclusive, and flat organization, on day one, March 22nd, 2018, when we first opened Venture Cafe, we had about 300 people through the door.
Wow.
It was a huge event. We had foreigners, we had Japanese people, we had men, we had women, we had students, we had a
Hmm.
great group of audience members. It was fun. It was very light, casual, just the way we like it. Um, but we saw pictures,
Hmm.
and we saw a lot of, it was male dominant.
Hmm.
It was, and male dominant, and it was a little bit of the older age, older generation. It might have been just one specific picture that stood out, but it was that way.
Hmm.
And Yusuke, the program director, my classmate from Babson, our professor. It was a very small team. It was just us, and then another
Hmm.
lady who works now at CIC with us. It was a team of four, and he said, "Here we are. We started. What do
Hmm.
we do from here? Where
Hmm.
do we want this to go?" And after seeing that picture, we said, "We need more students in here, and we need more women in here, just
Hmm.
in the beginning." So our 2019 goal was to build a culture of more students and more women entrepreneurs that came by. So we hit up all these different organizations, different schools, different entities to say, hey, why don't you do a program with us? Why don't you do X, Y, and Z? One of our goals to diversify the whole community. That was step one. Step two, when we were able to accomplish that a little bit, we said, let's become one of the biggest or the biggest multilingual communities here in Japan. So that was step two. And the reason for that was now we wanted to have a community where when we really say connecting innovators to make things happen, we need to be able to not just connect in Japan, but we need to connect globally as well. Meaning one of our biggest culture barriers or barriers in general is language and culture here in Japan when we're trying to connect with the outside world, or when the outside world is trying to connect with us inside and outside. So by having a multilingual community, if I had to choose two languages, obviously Japanese and English bilingual community, if our core is able to communicate language, great, as in English and Japanese, great. If you're able to communicate culture and language, so Japanese culture and let's say American speaking or English speaking culture, UK, Australia, America, whatever they may be, and mostly Europe too, obviously. Then in our core culture or core community is able to do so, no matter, as you said, consistency of having Thursday gatherings each and every week, no matter what language we have sessions in, and no matter what language is being pulled for that specific hour at Thursday gathering, because they're open 5 hours a week. If the core is able to connect them, doesn't matter what we do from now on, because our core will be able to pull together and connect those people if they're not able to communicate verbally at that point in time. So that was number two. But then we had a huge curveball come over, baseball term, that we were able to deal with the pandemic.
Oh gosh.
So we had to shift in a sense. And all of a sudden, sure, we're still doing our students. Sure, we're still collecting female entrepreneurs and supporting them. Sure, we want this bilingual community. But all of a sudden, we had to kind of switch over to a tech community too. People who are tech savvy, internet savvy, computer savvy, but also still trying to incorporate the community that we've been building for 2 years.
The human aspect.
And yes. And so the digital aspect, absolutely. And I don't know if we were able to fully pick everybody up because, computer skills and internet ability and internet just infrastructure is not fully there for the pandemic. So we did lose some of our regulars. When we are back in hybrid, they come back. So we haven't lost them fully. But participation-wise, each and every Thursday, sometimes it went down. But again, new space, new culture, new atmosphere, brought in new members too. And we think that's great. We think that, once we're back into fully, when we can meet in person and talk in person, even with a mask, doesn't matter. We think that we have an even stronger community. And again, that all ties back into connecting innovators to make things happen, which is we accept you as long as you are willing to be a part of it. And each and every person that comes in makes the community that much better, even if they don't know that. And a lot of people don't understand that you make the community better just by being there, because you have connections, you have knowledge, you have all these things that you either want to learn or share. And it might just be like, I like gyoza. And it's like, yeah, the person who comes in from Spain, straight from the airport. We have those people. We've had people come straight from the airport to Venture Café's Thursday gathering. And they come on a Thursday just because they want to be there.
Yeah.
Might be really hungry, and you help that person out have a great meal on their first night in Japan.
Yeah. Or they have like a tapas bar back in like Barcelona. And they're like, why don't you add gyoza to the offering?
Oh my God, absolutely. And see, that's great. already exported a Japanese food to Spain. Like it already happened, right? It's
Done.
not really innovation in a sense, but
Mhm,
it's getting things started.
mhm,
It's a conversation that you're willing to have. And a
mhm,
lot of people don't understand that the little things that you know or do or think about can lead to that huge conversation that will bring you somewhere.
mhm,
And a lot of people are like, oh, it's a business community, innovation community, this and that, this and that. I don't think I belong there. You
mhm,
belong there if you are willing to be part of it. And
mhm.
that's the greatness of what we do. And that's the greatness. You have a home when you come over, and you can be yourself when you're there. And that's where the fun starts.
Yeah. I love that. And this you and I have a similar profile in the sense of when it comes to innovation, when it comes to kind of like the tech communities, that our expertise isn't necessarily in the tech side of things, but it's in the people side of things, creating the space, creating the environment, creating the culture, making people feel like that they're, that they belong. That's also for me absolutely the reason, that I wake up in the morning as well, and the reason why the
It's so
Business Karaoke
fun.
podcast exists.
Yeah, it's
But
so cool.
one thing I'd love to know is, I think if you were to ask me how to do that, I don't know if I would have like there's no kind of like recipe. Um, as such, all I know is that it's so important for me. It's more important for me that other people feel comfortable even than myself. Like I'll put myself on the line so that other people, kind of have a more maybe like a smooth experience. I'll always be the first one to try something new so that other people don't have to like take the risk. I'm always willing to do that. But if
Absolutely.
we think about this kind of like community that you've created, what kind of characteristics do you think that people can take, not only just in the community of like the venture cafe, but even think back to like their jobs? What are some of these things do you think that people could even do that they might be able to from themselves give a little bit more? What do you think some of those things could be? You mentioned listening, and I think that's so important, but is there anything else that comes to mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Venture Cafe, when we're building this community, we have a set of guidelines. We call them the community credo.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, well, they were 8, and then we turned into this pandemic, so we created 2 more during the pandemic, because
Mm-hmm.
any given situation, if you are given a situation, you should probably try to adjust to it.
Mm-hmm.
um, but the very top, what comes out in the very first beginning, and we say this each and every week, is to have fun.
Yeah.
And having fun is one of the biggest precursors or stances that you need to have. And fun means different things for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are introverts, they like being themselves. Some people are experts, they need to be around people. So that in itself is just,
Uh-huh.
contradictory, right? So you can't
Mm-hmm.
support both people at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But our platform is able to do so because you're able to be yourself at that point. You might want to come over, grab a beer, and just sit and relax from your, stressful day. Hey, one week, so be it. Come grab a drink with us and sit in the corner, listen to some people talk, and then
Mm-hmm.
leave.
Yeah.
Other times, you learn or you have fun by learning new things.
Mm-hmm.
So you sit in a session, you don't really want to participate, and you have from an engineering background,
Mm-hmm.
and you're there listening about music innovation, sound
Mm-hmm.
innovation. You know, it might tie to engineering, it might turn into architecture talk, who knows? But you're able to have fun by listening
Mm-hmm.
and then learning something new. So our sessions are built for you to always be able to take a nugget of information away.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that's having fun, and there's lots of different ways of having it. We have lots of different ways of giving it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you've got to just participate. The listening part comes in about respecting one another and kind of respecting the space, respecting the community. Um, and once you're part of it, again, it is our community. Therefore, you have a say in it, but it's also your responsibility to make the place better.
Mm-hmm.
From a family talk, my mom always said, and a lot of people say it, leave the place better than it was before.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
once you come inside of it, it's your responsibility. Again, better means different things for a lot of people too. So, you've got to just leave it better in your own sense of the word.
Mm-hmm.
There's so that again comes into respect, listening to people, and also participating. One of the bigger differences again might be from culture wise is that, let's say, from a venture cafe in the United States versus a venture cafe here in Japan, people here tend to come to listen to more sessions. So they want to come to listen to Brittany talk. Hey, I'm here for an hour. I listen to her talk. I'm gone. In the States, a lot of people say, I'm here to listen to Brittany talk, but I like networking. So they network, completely dismiss that there was a Brittany session. And then we see them, they're like, "Aren't you being part of the session?" They go, "Oh, I enjoyed talking to X, Y, and Z."
Love that.
So now I'm just talking to them. I missed the session. I'll talk to her in the networking later. So there's two different also places or ways for you to first enjoy Thursday gathering, the networking, the sessions, but two different types of people once again. Again, people who come to listen, people who come to talk, connect, and a hybrid people who do both. And it might differ from week to week as well. So this whole participation thing is also a little bit, again, respecting the people that are around. Some people might not want to be bothered. Some people might want to be bothered. Some people want to talk. Some people want to share ideas, etc., etc. Changes week to week. Totally fine. Another big thing is that we consider ourselves, or we pride ourselves that we're not a venue for hard selling. So when you come to Thursday gathering, you are not a guinea pig to someone's product or service, unless obviously you're in a workshop or it's designated to be some sort of thing. So this week we have a huge pitch event. Come over, listen to pitches, and it's designed to be a pitch event. You're going to be talked to about products.
You're going to be pitched at.
Yeah. Exactly. And you're coming because of that. So don't be afraid or don't complain when you hear pitches.
Exactly.
So again, our sessions are built specifically for you to gain knowledge, again, if you are willing to listen. So something that you can take home with you and hopefully use for your life or your company or entrepreneurship journey, and do that. So we don't want to create this pressure of again, like I'm going to be taught this thing or sold this thing. None of that happens, and that's one of our values that we give people. And then from a digital standpoint, I quickly touch upon the digital is that we want people to understand that it's a great opportunity right now to connect with the world.
For
Everyone's
sure.
on digital. It made the world smaller. It makes you and I meeting together face to face a little bit different.
Yeah.
But then it makes the world a lot smaller.
And on this point, how good is it for foreign startups who usually wouldn't be able to do the whole like fly to Japan thing for 2 weeks? Because often in Japan, when you're looking, at an investor or a partner, it's the expectation that you out of respect, come and join us and we'll host you and everything. But at the same time, that's 2 weeks out of your schedules. It's flights, it's hotels, it's being away from your family and everything. So I think from a foreign startup perspective, looking to expand to Japan, this is an incredible opportunity to not just lower barriers, but just eradicate what I would consider those kind of almost a rite of passage. You have to come to Japan, be here for 2 weeks, we'll host you, blah, 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 meetings with Nani Nani san and whatever. You can scrap all that.
Yeah. I mean, again, Japan is very face to face, and it's very face to face friendly and in person friendly. But with the pandemic, I think Japan's starting to grow a little bit more, or at least expedited a lot of different things. But we work with a lot of our venture cafe partners. We work with a lot of different organizations from, the Jetros, if you will, and stuff like that as well. So we've got a lot of different companies that we work with. And when you bring up the point of this connection on the World Wide Web or technology or interwebs or whatever you want to call it, it's definitely helped not just foreign companies coming to Japan, but Japanese companies getting out into the world. For one example, we have a series of programs created by our Venture Cafe Warsaw partners called Innovation Bridge. And their sole goal for those couple hours is to create Warsaw with a certain city, Toronto, Seoul, Tokyo, whatever. And then we were able to, in a sense, replicate that program. And we connected Tokyo with Sydney, for example, and talked about energy and clean tech and environmental issues. And, the Miamis of the world. We're connecting with all these
Mm-hmm.
different companies, and then we also went outside of our venture cafe communities, connect with different countries and cities as well. And even during a pandemic, we were able to connect, 7 to 10 startups from one city
Mm.
to 7 to 10 startups from another city. But government organizations, startup help or entrepreneurial help, mentors, etc., within this 2-3 hours. And again, that's no flight cost, that's no hotel cost, that's no time lost with your family, as you mentioned, all these different things. And again, there's good things about digital.
Mm.
There's also
I
cons
miss
about
people
digital
though.
too.
Yeah, like I miss
Yeah,
people. Like
exactly.
yeah. Ideally, I would go for something more like a hybrid. You know what I mean? But certainly,
Absolutely.
if we are this kind of like digital world, there is certainly the bonuses. You and I are also going to jump into these topics in Japanese in a minute. But before we
We
do that,
are. Uh
yeah,
oh.
before we do that, um, share with me like 5 years from now. Like 5 years from now, with like Venture Cafe and CIC and like the innovation community in Japan, where do you want to see this going? Where do we want to be? What's kind of like our, objectives and key results in like 5 years from now? When do we know we've done a good job?
Oh man. All right. So first of all, I think that's multiple layers, just because one's a nonprofit and one's for profit. But just as an innovation community as a whole, I hope that we keep growing in a sense. Because when again, I'm going to tie this back to being a mission-driven company
Hmm.
or mission-driven nonprofit. As long as there's people in the world, time keeps moving. There's gonna be new opportunities had. And opportunities means that there's going to be some sort of trouble in the world. So we need superheroes to come fix that.
Hmm.
And it might be us once in a while, but it's most likely going to be someone in the community that's going to become the new Superman or Batman or Wolverine or whatever you want to call it, right? Wonder Woman.
Hmm.
And we need to be there to be the platform that is able to support and be a playground for these entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. So, from a KPI standpoint, yes, we want more people to be there. We average 300 people per Thursday gathering right now. Yeah, 5 years from now, let's make it 1,000. 1,000 people are coming each and every week. Great. But we're not really here to chase numbers. That's
Yeah.
not our goal. Our goal is connecting innovators to make things happen.
Hmm.
So, the more connections that can be had, the more people that can be made, the easier businesses are able to maneuver, the easier businesses are able to communicate, the
Hmm.
easier to actually listen, observe, and find these problems.
Hmm.
How do we make that a possibility, right? How do we able to build more people or more young generation who look into these problems and say, oh, I think I see a problem here, or I think I can
Hmm.
make this better.
Hmm.
Okay, I think I know how to do that, but who do I talk to, or what can I do? Being you come to Venture Cafe, you come to a Thursday gathering, oh, let me talk to this person, or this person already is talking to this kid, or you know this student or this retiree, and saying, oh, I think I may be able to help you, or I've experienced that before. Oh, I failed at that 5 years ago, but let's try it now because it's 5 years later, it might work,
Yeah.
right?
World's
Again, like
different.
turning it into action trumps everything and gaining that experience and then replicating it and understanding how to replicate that, right? You've
Hmm.
done the process before, it just didn't work because of time.
Hmm.
But time's different now, it's 5 years later, so they
Hmm.
might work this time. Um, so again, it's really hard to define what will be successful because the problems are going to be different, the people are going to hopefully be there. So from a pure statistical standpoint, yeah, we want to be bigger, yeah, we want more people, we want more diversity, great. But I think it's the qualitative stats that are going to be the stories, the proof of concepts, the um,
Relationships, connections,
the
that kind of stuff.
relationships built exactly that are going to be key to creating this. So 5 years from now, we're going to be facing a whole different set of problems on top of, let's say aging population in Japan, diminishing population in Japan, uh, global warming, which is a global problem. all
Mhm.
these different things are going to be there, but we're going to be facing a lot more other problems. We might have another
Mhm.
pandemic. We might have
Oh yeah.
we might have all these different things come by. But I think 5 years from now, because of our community and furthermore the innovation community as a whole, which is the plug and plays, the edge ofs, the Shibuyas, the Tokyos, like there's multiple Osaka Innovation Hub. Japan has a lot of them starting to grow up, and we need to come together as a community, as an innovation community as a whole in Japan, to be able to tackle new problems that come aboard. And then I think that'll be a sign of growth in Japan as a whole.
Mhm.
Um, and if we are able to act faster, listen more, and maneuver, and the outcome might be failure. Failure is good, but able to learn from that again. Um, so, in a sense, like what determines it, I guess that we keep going.
Mm.
It's a continuation.
For sure.
That we are still here in 5 years is a testament to the community being needed and a testament to our will to keep innovating and a testament to Japan, you know, in a sense, becoming a power in the innovation space, startup
Mhm.
space, and entrepreneurial space. Um, and hopefully, that'll be, we'll still be here in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 100
Mhm.
years.
Yeah, for sure. And on that note, I think this is kind of the business karaoke podcast community is also really very much that kind of like type C person who has knowledge of Japan, but they also have knowledge of somewhere else. Maybe it's another industry, maybe it's another country. So this is certainly the time that these kinds of people uh, get involved. Like Tak said, get involved in some issues, some challenges. Don't worry if you don't know how to solve it, but your contribution to be a part of the solution. I think that's something really exciting. But if, as Tak mentioned, you just wanted to come by and just say hi, like that's also totally fine as well. So on that note, Tak, make sure you don't be a stranger to the Business Karaoke podcast. Make sure you come back. Tell us what's
Absolutely.
going on, update us, and we can maybe even come back and talk more about, embracing the weirdness, as you mentioned.
Hey, if I'm not weird to you, I'm always back. I'm always back. Invite me back. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Tak.
Thank you.